The mountain loomed like a silent judge, its jagged peaks slicing through the dawn mist. Eli's boots crunched on the gravel trail, his heart pounding louder than his steps. He stole a glance at Caleb, who walked ahead, obliviouser pretending to be. Eli had known Caleb since they were kids, their lives tangled like the roots of the old oaks back in their small Tennessee town. They'd shared everything, secrets whispered under blankets, dreams of escaping their dead-end lives, the sting of bruises from fathers who didn't understand. But there was one secret Eli kept locked tight. He was in love with Caleb, and every moment near him was a quiet kind of torture. The Appalachian Trail stretched before them, a 10-day hike they'd planned as a last hurrah before Caleb's wedding to Sarah, his high school sweetheart. Eli had agreed to the trip with a smile, hiding the ache that came with knowing Caleb would soon belong to someone else. Just friends, Caleb had said when he proposed the hike, his blue eyes bright with that easy charm Eli could never resist. But friends didn't feel the way Eli did when Caleb laughed, or when their shoulders brushed during a campfire. The first morning was crisp, the air heavy with the scent of pine and damp earth. They'd set out from Springer Mountain, backpacks heavy, spirits higher, so Caleb thought. Eli's mind was a storm. He watched Caleb's broad shoulders move under his jacket, the way his blonde hair caught the sunlight. Every step up the trail felt like a countdown to losing him forever. "Yo, Eli, keep up," Caleb called, turning with a grin. "You're moving like you're hauling a piano." Eli forced a laugh, adjusting his pack. "Just pacing myself. You're the one acting like this is a race." Caleb's grin widened, and he slowed to match Eli's stride. "Gotta burn off the nerves. Man, big day coming up." His voice was light, but there was a flicker in his eyes, something Eli couldn't place. Was it doubt? Fear? Or was Eli just seeing what he wanted to see? They hiked in comfortable silence for a while, the trail winding through dense forest. Sunlight filtered through the canopy, dappling the ground in gold. Eli tried to focus on the beauty of it, the way the world felt bigger out here. But his thoughts kept circling back to Caleb, to the way Caleb's hand had lingered on his arm last night while setting up the tent, to the time in high school when they'd gotten drunk and Caleb had leaned in, just for a moment, before pulling back with a nervous laugh. By midday, they reached a clearing with a view that stole Eli's breath, not just for the rolling valleys below, but for Caleb. Standing at the edge, wind ruffling his hair. "This is why I love it out here," Caleb said, his voice soft. "No one telling you who to be." Eli's heart twisted. "Yeah," he managed. "Out here, it's just you and the mountain." Caleb turned, his eyes locking onto Eli's. For a second, the world shrank to just the two of them. Then Caleb looked away, clearing his throat. "We should keep moving. Got a lot of ground to cover." They pressed on, the trail growing steeper. Eli's legs burned, but the real pain was in his chest. He wanted to scream, to grab Caleb and demand to know if he felt it to the pull, the unspoken thing that had hung between them for years. But he stayed silent, because that's what you did when you loved someone who was straight. You buried it. That night, they camped by a small stream, the fire crackling between them. Caleb talked about the wedding, about Sarah's dress, the venue, the life he was building. Eli nodded, poking at the fire, each word a fresh cut. But then Caleb went quiet, staring into the flames. "You ever feel like you're running from something?" Caleb asked suddenly, his voice low. Eli's pulse spiked. "All the time," he said, too honest. "You?" Caleb didn't answer right away. He tossed a stick into the fire, watching it burn. "Sometimes I think I'm not built for the life everyone expects me to live." Eli's breath caught. He wanted to ask what that meant, to push, to hope. But before he could, Caleb stood, brushing off his jeans. Forget it. I'm just tired. Let's get some sleep. Eli lay awake in his sleeping bag, the weight of Caleb's words pressing down on him. The mountain was quiet, but inside Eli, a storm was building. Tomorrow, he promised himself. Tomorrow, he'd find the courage to say something. Anything. But the mountain had its own plans. And by morning, everything would change. The second day dawned gray, clouds heavy with the promise of rain. Eli woke to the sound of Caleb packing up, his movements sharp, almost angry. Something had shifted overnight, and Eli felt it like a cold wind. They broke camp in silence, the easy banter of yesterday gone. The trail climbed higher, the air thinner, each step a test of endurance. Eli's mind churned with Caleb's words from the fire. I'm not built for the life everyone expects. What did that mean? Was it about Sarah? The wedding? Or something deeper? Something Eli had spent years hoping for, but never dared voice. By noon, the rain came. A steady drizzle that soaked their jackets and turned the trail to mud. Caleb slipped, cursing as he caught himself on a rock. Eli reached out instinctively, grabbing his arm. Their eyes met, and for a moment, time stopped. Caleb's hand closed over Eli's, lingering longer than it needed to. You okay? Eli asked, his voice rough. Caleb nodded, pulling away. Yeah, just clumsy. But it wasn't just clumsiness. Eli saw it in the way Caleb avoided his gaze, the way his jaw tightened. Something was eating at him, and Eli wanted to shake him, to demand answers. Instead, he let go and kept walking, the rain masking the tears he refused to let fall. They stopped at a rocky outcrop to eat, huddling under a tarp. Caleb was quiet, picking at his sandwich. Eli couldn't stand it anymore. What's going on with you? He asked, sharper than he meant. Caleb's eyes flicked up, startled. Nothing. Just thinking. About what? Eli pressed, heart racing. Last night. You said. Forget last night. Caleb snapped, cutting him off. I was just talking out of my ass. Eli flinched, the words hitting like a punch. He wanted to push harder, but the look in Caleb's eyes, fear, maybe, or shame stopped him. They finished eating in silence, the rain drumming on the tarp. The afternoon was brutal. The trail grew treacherous, slick with mud and loose stones. Eli focused on his footing, trying to ignore the ache in his chest. Caleb stayed ahead, his pace relentless, like he was running from something, or someone. By dusk, they reached a narrow ridge with a dizzying drop on one side. The rain had stopped, but the wind was fierce, whipping through the trees. Eli's stomach twisted as he watched Caleb move along the edge, too close for comfort. Caleb, slow down. Eli called, his voice sharp with worry. Caleb turned, his foot catching on a root. He stumbled, arms flailing, and for one heart-stopping moment, Eli thought he'd fall. Without thinking, Eli lunged, grabbing Caleb's jacket and yanking him back. They collapsed in a heap, panting, Eli's arms still around Caleb. Jesus, Eli gasped, his heart pounding. You trying to kill yourself? Caleb didn't answer. He was shaking, his face pale. Eli realized he was still holding him. Their bodies pressed close. Caleb didn't pull away. Instead, he turned his head, his breath warm against Eli's cheek. I don't know what I'm doing, Caleb whispered, his voice breaking. Eli's heart stopped. What? Caleb's eyes were wet, whether from the rain or something else. Eli couldn't tell. I don't know how to be the guy everyone wants me to be, he said. Not with Sarah. Not with you. Eli's throat tightened. He wanted to ask what that meant. to demand clarity. But the words stuck. Instead, he tightened his grip, afraid to let go. You don't have to be anyone, he said softly. Just be you. Caleb laughed. A bitter sound. That's the problem. I don't know who that is. They sat there, the wind howling around them. Eli's arms still around Caleb. For the first time, Eli felt the weight of Caleb's own storm. The one he'd been hiding behind smiles and plans for a life he didn't want. But what did he want? Eli was too afraid to ask. They set up camp in silence. The ridge a stark reminder of how close they'd come to disaster. As they ate by the fire, Caleb's mood seemed to lift. But Eli could still feel the tension. He wanted to believe Caleb's words meant something, that they were a crack in the wall he'd built around himself. But doubt gnawed at him. What if he was wrong? That night, as they lay in their tent, Eli couldn't sleep. The air was thick with unspoken words. He turned to face Caleb, who was staring at the tent ceiling, his breathing uneven. Caleb, Eli whispered. Whatever it is, you can tell me. Caleb didn't respond, but his hand reached out, finding Eli's in the dark. Their fingers intertwined, and Eli's heart raced. It wasn't an answer, but it was something. For now, it was enough. The third day broke with a fragile calm. The sky clear, but the air heavy with last night's moment. Caleb's hand in Eli's had felt like a lifeline. But now, in the daylight, Caleb was distant again, his smile forced as they packed up. Eli's hope flickered like a candle in a storm. The trail wound through a dense forest, the trees towering like silent witnesses. Eli kept stealing glances at Caleb, searching for a sign that last night wasn't a fluke. But Caleb was all business, checking the map, pointing out landmarks, anything to avoid meeting Eli's eyes. They stopped at a stream to refill their water bottles, the sound of rushing water filling the silence. Eli crouched by the bank, watching Caleb's reflection in the water. He looked tired, his jaw set, like he was carrying more than just a backpack. You gonna talk to me? Eli asked finally, unable to keep quiet. Caleb froze, his bottle half filled. About what? You know what? Eli said, standing. Last night. What you said on the ridge. You can't just drop that and act like nothing happened. Caleb capped his bottle, his movements deliberate. I told you. I was just tired. I didn't mean anything. Bullshit. Eli snapped, his voice echoing through the trees. You don't grab my hand like that if it's nothing. Caleb's face tightened, and for a moment, Eli thought he'd bolt. But then he sighed, running a hand through his hair. Eli, I'm getting married in 2 weeks. What do you want me to say? I want you to be honest, Eli said, his voice shaking. For once, just tell me what's going on in your head. Caleb looked away, his eyes fixed on the stream. It's not that simple. Then make it simple, Eli said, stepping closer. You owe me that much. Caleb's shoulders slumped, and when he finally looked at Eli, there was a rawness in his eyes that made Eli's chest ache. I don't know how to do this, he said. I've spent my whole life trying to be what everyone expects. My dad, Sarah, the whole damn town. But out here, he gestured at the forest, the mountains. It's like I can breathe for the first time, and it scares the hell out of me. Eli's heart pounded. What scares you? Caleb swallowed hard. You, he said quietly. What I feel when I'm with you. The words hit Eli like a tidal wave. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Caleb took a step back, his face pale. I shouldn't have said that. Forget it. No, Eli said, grabbing his arm. Don't do that. Don't shut me out again. Caleb pulled away, but not before Eli saw the panic in his eyes. I can't. Eli, I can't just blow up my life. Then why are we here? Eli asked, his voice breaking. Why did you ask me to come on this trip? Caleb didn't answer. He turned and started walking, leaving Eli standing by the stream, his heart in pieces. The rest of the day was a blur. They hiked in silence, the distance between them growing with every step. Eli's mind raced, replaying Caleb's words, the feel of his hand, the fear in his eyes. He wanted to believe Caleb felt the same way, but doubt was a cruel companion. By evening, they reached a high meadow, the grass golden in the fading light. They set up camp, the routine mechanical. Caleb built the fire, his movements precise, like he was trying to keep himself together. Eli watched, torn between anger and longing. Dinner was quiet, the crackle of the fire the only sound. Eli couldn't take it anymore. You can't keep doing this, he said, his voice low. You can't say something like that and then pretend it didn't happen. Caleb stared into the flames, his jaw tight. I'm trying. Eli, I'm trying to figure it out. Figure what out? Eli pressed. That you're not happy with Sarah. That you're not who you've been pretending to be. Caleb's head snapped up, his eyes blazing. You think it's that easy? You think I can just walk away from everything? My family, my friends, my whole life. I think you're scared, Eli said, his voice steady despite the storm inside him. And I think you're lying to yourself. Caleb stood, his hands clenched. You don't get it. Eli, you've always been brave. You came out. You faced it. I'm not like you. Eli's throat tightened. You think I wasn't scared? I lost people too. But I couldn't keep lying. Not to myself. Caleb's eyes softened. And for a moment, Eli thought he might say something. But then he turned away, disappearing into the tent. Eli sat by the fire, the weight of the night pressing down on him. He'd pushed too hard, and now he wasn't sure if he'd lost Caleb for good. The fourth day was a test of endurance, not just for their bodies, but for their hearts. The trail climbed relentlessly, the air thin and sharp. Eli's legs ached, but the real pain was the silence between him and Caleb. Caleb hadn't spoken since last night's argument, his face a mask of resolve. Eli kept his distance, giving him space, though every step felt like a betrayal of the truth they'd brushed against. He replayed Caleb's confession, what I feel when I'm with you, and it both fueled his hope and broke his heart. They stopped at a rocky overlook, the view stretching across endless peaks. Caleb stood at the edge, his back to Eli, the wind tugging at his jacket. Eli wanted to go to him, to bridge the gap, but fear held him back. What if Caleb shut him out for good? You were right, Caleb said suddenly, his voice carrying over the wind. He didn't turn around. I'm scared. Eli's heart leaped. He stepped closer, careful, like approaching a wounded animal. Of what? Caleb's shoulders tensed. Of everything. Of what it means if I admit what I've been feeling. Eli's breath caught. And what's that? Caleb turned, his eyes raw with emotion. That I've been in love with you since we were kids, he said, his voice breaking. But I've been too damn scared to face it. The world tilted. Eli stared, his mind struggling to process the words he'd dreamed of hearing. Caleb, I tried to be what they wanted. Caleb went on, his voice shaking. The perfect son, the perfect fiancé. But it's a lie. And out here, with you, I can't keep pretending. Eli's heart pounded so hard he thought it might burst. He took a step forward, then another, until he was close enough to see the tears in Caleb's eyes. Then don't. He said softly. Don't pretend anymore. Caleb's breath hitched. And for a moment, Eli thought he might run. But then Caleb reached out, his hand trembling as it brushed Eli's cheek. The touch was electric, a spark that set Eli's whole body alight. He leaned in, and Caleb didn't pull away. Their lips met, tentative at first, then desperate, years of longing pouring into that single moment. The wind howled around them, but Eli felt only Caleb's warmth, his taste, the way his hands gripped Eli's jacket like he was afraid to let go. When they finally pulled apart, Caleb's eyes were wide, his breathing ragged. I don't know what to do now, he admitted. Eli smiled, his heart full despite the uncertainty. We'll figure it out. Together. They stood there, foreheads pressed together, the world falling away. But the moment was fleeting. The trail called, and so did the reality waiting below. They hiked on, hand in hand for a while, until Caleb gently let go, his expression torn. That night, they camped in a sheltered grove, the stars bright above. Caleb was quieter, but the tension had eased. They sat by the fire, shoulders touching, and for the first time, Eli felt like they were on the same side. I need to tell Sarah, Caleb said, breaking the silence. I can't marry her. Not like this. Eli's heart ached, not just for Caleb but for Sarah, who deserved better than a lie. It won't be easy, he said, but it's the right thing. Caleb nodded, staring into the fire. I've been running from this for so long. I don't even know who I am without the mask. Eli reached for his hand, squeezing it gently. You're enough, just as you are. Caleb's eyes met his, and for the first time, Eli saw something new, hope. But the mountain wasn't done with them yet, and the days ahead would test them in ways neither could predict. The fifth day was a blur of beauty and tension. The kiss lingered in Eli's mind, a moment of clarity in the chaos of their journey. But Caleb's confession had opened a door that couldn't be closed, and the weight of it hung between them. The trail wound through a valley, the air thick with the scent of wildflowers. Caleb walked closer to Eli now, their arms brushing occasionally, each touch a reminder of what had changed. But there was a new distance too, a quiet fear in Caleb's eyes that Eli couldn't ignore. They stopped at a lake, its surface mirror smooth, reflecting the towering peaks. Caleb sat on a rock, skipping stones across the water. Eli joined him, their silence heavy but not uncomfortable. I keep thinking about home, Caleb said finally. What happens when we go back? Eli's stomach twisted. What do you want to happen? Caleb's stone sank with a plop. I want to be honest. With Sarah. With everyone. But I'm scared of what I'll lose. Eli nodded, understanding the cost of truth. He'd lost friends, family, when he came out. But he'd gained himself. It's worth it, he said, even when it hurts. Caleb looked at him, his eyes searching. How do you do it? How do you live so openly? Eli laughed softly. I don't have a choice. Hiding who I am, it was killing me. Caleb's expression softened, and he reached for Eli's hand, his fingers warm and steady. I don't want to hide anymore, he said, but I need time. Eli squeezed his hand. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere. The moment was broken by a rustle in the trees. A deer stepped into the clearing, its eyes wide and curious. Caleb laughed, the sound light and free, and Eli's heart swelled. For the first time, he saw a glimpse of the Caleb who might emerge from this, unburdened by lies. They hiked on, the trail growing steeper as they climbed toward a high pass. The air was thinner, each breath a struggle. Caleb's mood lifted, his laughter returning as they traded stories from their childhood. But Eli could sense the undercurrent of fear, the knowledge that every step brought them closer to the real world. That night, they camped on a rocky plateau, the stars a breathtaking canopy above. They lay side by side outside the tent, the ground cold beneath them. Caleb's hand found Eli's again, and they lay there, fingers intertwined, the silence saying more than words ever could. "I'm glad we're here," Caleb said softly, "even if it's messy." Eli turned to him, their faces close in the dark. "Me too." Caleb leaned in, kissing him again, slower this time, deliberate. It wasn't just desire, it was a promise, fragile but real. Eli's heart ached with the weight of it, knowing the road ahead would be anything but easy. As they fell asleep, the mountain seemed to hold its breath, waiting for what came next. The sixth day brought a storm, both literal and figurative. Dark clouds rolled in as they broke camp, the air heavy with the threat of rain. Caleb was quiet again, his earlier lightness gone. Eli felt the shift, the way Caleb's smiles didn't reach his eyes. The trail was treacherous, slick with mud from an earlier shower. They moved carefully, their focus on the path. But Eli's mind was on Caleb. The kisses, the confessions, had changed everything. But they hadn't erased the fear. Caleb was teetering on the edge of a decision, and Eli wasn't sure which way he'd fall. By midday, the rain hit, a downpour that soaked them to the bone. They found shelter under a rocky overhang, their bodies close for warmth. Caleb's teeth chattered, and Eli wrapped an arm around him, trying to ignore the way his heart raced. "We can't keep doing this," Caleb said suddenly, his voice barely audible over the rain. Eli's stomach dropped. "Doing what?" "This," Caleb said, gesturing between them, pretending it's simple. "It's not." Eli pulled back, stung. "I'm not pretending anything. I've been honest with you from the start." Caleb's eyes were tormented. "I know. And that's what makes it so hard. You're so sure of who you are. I'm a mess." Eli wanted to argue, to tell Caleb he was enough. But the words felt hollow. Instead, he took Caleb's hand, holding it tightly. "You don't have to have it all figured out. Just don't shut me out." Caleb nodded, but his eyes were distant. The rain slowed, and they hiked on, the silence heavier than ever. Eli's hope was fraying, but he clung to it, refusing to let go. That night, they camped in a clearing, the stars hidden by clouds. Caleb built the fire, his movements mechanical. Eli watched, his chest tight with the fear that Caleb was slipping away. "I called Sarah this morning," Caleb said suddenly, his voice flat. "When you were packing." Eli's heart stopped. "What did you say?" Caleb stared into the fire. "I told her I needed to talk when we get back. That things might change." Eli's breath caught. "And?" "She cried," Caleb said, his voice breaking. "She knew something was wrong. I couldn't tell her the truth. Not yet." Eli nodded, his throat tight. He wanted to be angry, to demand more. But he saw the pain in Caleb's eyes. "You'll tell her when you're ready," he said, "and I'll be here." Caleb looked at him, his expression raw. "Why? Why do you keep waiting for me?" "Because I love you," Eli said simply, the words spilling out before he could stop them. "I always have." Caleb's eyes filled with tears, and he reached for Eli, pulling him into a fierce embrace. They held each other as the fire died, the night closing in around them. For now, it was enough. The seventh day was a turning point. The trail climbed to its highest peak, the air thin and sharp, the world spread out below like a promise. Eli felt it too, the sense that they were nearing the end. Not just of the hike, but of something bigger. Caleb was different today. Quieter, but not withdrawn. There was a resolve in his eyes. A determination that both comforted and terrified Eli. They hiked side by side, their steps in sync. The silence filled with unspoken understanding. At the summit, they stopped. The view breathtaking. Mountains rolled into the distance, their peaks shrouded in mist. Caleb stood close to Eli, their shoulders touching. "This is it," Caleb said, his voice steady. "The top." Eli nodded, his heart heavy. "Yeah, but it's not the end." Caleb turned to him, his eyes clear. "I'm going to tell her," he said. "When we get back, I'm going to tell Sarah everything." Eli's breath caught. "Everything?" Caleb nodded. "I can't live a lie anymore. Not after this. Not after you." Eli's heart soared, but fear tempered his joy. "It's going to be hard," he said. "Your family, your friends." "I know," Caleb said, "but I need to do this. For me." Eli reached for his hand, their fingers intertwining. "I'm proud of you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. Caleb smiled. A real smile. The kind Eli hadn't seen in years. "I'm scared shitless," he admitted. "But I feel free." They stood there, hand in hand, the world at their feet. For the first time, Eli believed they might make it, that they could build something real. But the descent loomed, and with it, the reality of what waited below. That night, they camped in a quiet valley, the stars bright above. Caleb was lighter, his laughter easy, his touches lingering. They kissed by the fire, the moment sweet and unhurried. Eli felt the weight of years lifting, replaced by a fragile hope. "I love you too," Caleb said suddenly, his voice soft but sure. "I should have said it sooner." Eli's heart stopped, then started again. Faster. He pulled Caleb close, their foreheads touching, and for the first time, he let himself believe in a future. The final days of the hike were a descent, both literal and figurative. The trail wound downward, the air growing warmer, the world below coming into focus. Eli and Caleb walked closer now, their hands brushing, their smiles shared. But the closer they got to the end, the heavier the reality felt. Caleb was resolute, his decision made, but Eli could see the fear in his eyes. Telling Sarah, facing his family, would be a battle. Eli knew it too well, the cost of living your truth. But he also knew the freedom that came with it. And he vowed to stand by Caleb, no matter what. On the last day, they reached the trailhead, their packs lighter, their hearts heavier. The world they'd left behind was waiting, and with it, the consequences of their choices. Caleb stopped, staring at the parking lot where their ride would soon arrive. "I'm ready," he said, more to himself than to Eli. Eli took his hand, squeezing it gently. "You don't have to do it alone." Caleb smiled, his eyes bright with unshed tears. "I know." They drove back to town in silence, the weight of the future pressing down. When they reached Caleb's house, Sarah was waiting, her face pale, her eyes searching. Caleb took a deep breath and stepped out of the car, Eli following a few steps behind. The conversation was private, but Eli could see the pain in Sarah's face, the way her shoulders shook as Caleb spoke. When it was over, she hugged him, tears streaming, and walked away. Caleb stood there, alone, until Eli joined him. "She'll be okay," Caleb said, his voice hoarse. "Eventually." Eli nodded, his heart aching for them both. "And you?" Caleb turned to him, his expression raw but determined. I'm free, he said simply. For the first time in my life. They stood together in the fading light. The mountain a distant memory, but its lessons etched into their souls. The road ahead would be hard families to face, judgments to endure, a new life to build. But they had each other, and that was enough. As they walked away, hand in hand, Eli knew they'd climbed more than a mountain. They'd found themselves, and in doing so, found a love worth fighting for.